And we are underway. Individual men heat number 3, your top 20 coming out of the 2023 quarterfinals here for the 2023 European semifinal. The European Championships is what is being heralded here over in Berlin, Germany. As we're starting off with that 3K bike, you're looking at some athletes in this. You got your top 20 athletes, but starting off with this 3K Echo bike, if you look at the test from a whole, what we have in store is we do have 3K Echo bike for test number 1, 84-foot hand-over-hand pull, 2,000-meter air runner, 84-foot pull, 1,000-meter ski, and a 92-foot pull, 225 pounds or 102 kilos. As we look at your top 20 athletes. Another athlete in this field is an athlete that is known for his strength, but is now focusing full-time on CrossFit, and that's Bronislav Valenkowicz. Let's go down to Brian Friend with more on Brownie.
Yeah, Chase, I just spoke with Justin Collar down here in the coaches area, and obviously they've been working on the aerobic conditioning, but he said they have very specific paces they want to hold on all the machines, and Braun is looking to make his move on the sled where he feels like he might be able to move it with the efficiency that we just saw from Jelle Hoste, and if he's able to maintain that discipline, he could surprise on this event.
I think that's what's interesting here with these athletes is that they've had a lot of chance to look at other performances and really lock in, dial in their paces. But that sometimes is a trap for athletes. If they're really stuck in hitting a certain target, whether it's on the Echo bike or the Air Runner or the SkiErg, sometimes you gotta be ready to go. If other people are charging in front of you and you're just sitting there looking at your numbers and going, I gotta hit my numbers, I gotta hit my numbers, you may let several people just go in front of you. So sometimes you wanna have that flexibility. And that's where the great athletes are. They're aware of where opportunity sits, and they have to deviate from the plan sometimes.
Hey, look at the beginning of
Chris,
steps.
Chris, I was just going to say, with the movement of this sled now, because the floor seems to be moving the sleds a little bit quicker than other semifinals around the place, what sort of strategy are the athletes going to have to come in? Because we've seen that the heart rate's probably going to be up a little bit because the sled's moving a little bit faster, and they're getting back to those Assault AirRunner and the SkiErg a little bit quicker than they had previously done in week number 1.
I've talked to a lot of athletes, and the difficulty with the sled is that they all have to brace. No matter how big, no matter how strong they are, they have to brace every time that they make that pull. Essentially, they're holding their breath. And when they hold their breath, unfortunately, what's going to do is it's going to send their heart rate soaring. Every single time that they're on that sled, their heart rate begins to soar because of that bracing and the breath hold. And so they have to then resettle again when they get on that piece of equipment. And the question really is, how long does it take you to resettle into that sustainable pace that you've actually earmarked before the workout? I have to admit that when you look at all the cyclists out there, the way in which they're pedaling, they're all very controlled, very conservative in the way in which they're attacking it. They're patient because this workout doesn't actually finish right here. It's a long one.
Hands in the air, athletes off the bike. Lane 20, Antoine Dumaine. And in lane number lane 20, yep, Antoine Dumaine. In lane 6, you have Moritz Feibig.
So those speeds, just for people listening, the fastest people came off just over 4 minutes, and so what you're targeting is roughly 72 to 73 RPMs for that total amount of time.
Moritz Feibig in lane number 6 is making very quick work of that first sled. No surprise to see that at the beginning, and now can they sustain that late? But if you want to beat the best time we've seen here It was in heat 2, set by Yelahoste, 22:05.34. Again, that time is unofficial. But Moritz Fiebig made a name for himself last year at the Lowlands Throwdown, and what he did in that finale just to make it to the CrossFit Games. And this guy is a powerhouse packed athlete. And to see that move on the sled, not a big surprise to see that, but can he sustain it, I think, is the other side of that coin.
And that's what we'll look at. When he hops on that air runner, does he look heavy? Is he sinking into every foot strike? Does it look like he's running in soft sand or mud? Does he look heavy, or does he have that pop, that jump, that spring in his step? If he's lively, then he's dangerous.
Moritz Fiebig, right side of your screen, on the runner, right about that 5:45 mark.
Now, Chase, that is 15 seconds quicker than Jason's hopper split time from week 1, which is the fastest time so far across all semifinals.
Wow. So 15 seconds ahead of one of the faster times we've seen so far. But we can see a lot happen on this 2,000 meters. That's a long time on the air runner in the middle of this test at the intensity that they've already gone to get here, knowing the intensity they have on the back half with 2 sled pulls and a ski.
Yeah, this is a really difficult distance. I applaud CrossFit for putting in a distance that you just can't fake it. There's a lot of CrossFit athletes that have an incredible aerobic capacity, incredible VO2 max numbers, and they could survive in a 6-minute time domain. But when you bump it out to 9 minutes, 10 minutes, such as this 2K, now you have to actually have done some work. And that's what these athletes are showing right now. I mean, they look, for this 20 people, they look solid. This is a really solid looking group of people.
And unlike we've seen in previous heats, all 20 men now on the air runner, nearly within about 20 seconds of each other. And if you're looking at your screen from left to right, lane 1, Max Olofstrand. Lane 2, Victor Jondal. Lane 3, Henrik Hapalainen. Lane 4, Alex Katulis. Lane 5, Bronislav Alenkowicz. Lane 6, Moritz Fiebig. Lane 7, Jonne Koski. Lane 8, Harry Lightfoot. Lane 9, Victor Hoffer. Lane 10, Fabian Benito. Lane 11, going for his 10th straight CrossFit Games, Björgvin Karl Guðmundsson. Lane 7, Lazar Dukic. Lane 13, Reggie Fossa. Lane 14, Anjol Okai. Lane 15, Enrico Zanoni. Lane 16, Uldis Upenix. Lane 17, Danielle Camacho. Lane 18, Luka Dukic. Lane 19, Yorgos Kerevis. Lane 20, Antoine Dumaine. Let's go down to Brian Friend with more on Fabian.
Yeah, Chase, Fabian Benito. You may have seen him make a big move at the Dubai Fittest Championship last December, where he actually won that competition. He's had a fantastic offseason. The last year at semifinals, it was event 1 that did him in. He got last place on the legless rope climb event in the lowland throwdown, and it was too much for him to overcome, despite fighting all the way back to making a last chance qualifier. So I'm looking for him to get off to a little bit of a better start, and no better place to do it here, right next to BK and Lazar, 2 of the favorites coming into the weekend.
Lazar Dukic, who hasn't really had a healthy off season. He had an issue after the Burj Khalifa climb, having a little recovery problem there. He twisted his ankle on the first event. I mean, really first event problems have been for Lazar Dukic. It turned his ankle on the ranch run. And Lazar is one of those athletes that we think could be potentially taking over the mantle of BKG as he works into the later stage of his career as being one of the top male European athletes.
And he's done a really good job in aligning himself with good people. I mean, he's tapped into Rich Froning, and Rich has helped him come along in terms of his knowledge, his experience, better decision making, better pacing, but also better training. And he's a seasoned athlete. He's been around for a long time, and he's learned along the way. I think that you're right, though, Chase. Has he recovered from those situations to be able to perform here? That's going to be the question. This workout is ideal for him, and I expect him to be in the top 3. If he's not, then I might shrug my shoulders and go, I'm not sure.
Test record, the fastest time we've seen so far, set by Zach Thomas at the Oceania Regional, 21:51.06, the fastest time we have had here so far for the men. Yelahoste at 22:05.34. And that is the time that matters for these 20 men here for test 1. Third and final heat to start the weekend off. 7 total events, 11 spots available. And 11 sounds like a lot, but it's just, with this field and depth we have, not to say it's not enough, but it is not going to be an easy path to the CrossFit Games.
It won't. I mean, one of the advantages, but it's also a disadvantage in going last like this, is that in the earlier semifinals, athletes were making mistakes. Here, they're not going to make any mistakes. They've gone through these workouts multiple times. They know precisely what they're going to do in every single event. And so it's much more methodical, much more precise. There's less air, there's less risk. And that risk is the thing that we all enjoy, especially in the final event. What I look for in these athletes right now that are running, I'm looking at their rate of breath. How many footsteps are they taking per cycle of breath? And that's a very important tell, that oxidative pathway where we use our oxygen as an energy source to fuel those slow twitch fibers and those intermediate fibers. That breathing cadence tells me a lot. Are they in control or are they hyperventilating? And that's what I'm looking at, that rate of breath. Because when they get off of this runner, and they pull that sled, now they're back into that breath hold. And that's where we're going to see some shifts in athletes. The core of this workout, in my opinion, starts on the next sled pull.
Chase, you got me?
Yeah, Brian.
Chris, I'm just standing here in front of Reggie Fossa. And one thing that I've noticed throughout the semifinal weekends that is on these runners, the heel strike actually pulls the tread a little bit quicker. And I notice he's very springy on his toes. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about how you might alter your running strategy on this?
That's what's so impressive about these athletes is they know that when they're going to pull that sled, they're going to be doing a lot of posterior chain, the glutes, high hamstring, but our quads are getting damaged. Well, you need to be able to adjust that real time on this runner right now. And the way you do it is manipulate your foot strike. If you land heel first, not an overstride, but heel first, you activate your posterior chain. You land on the ball of your foot, you activate your quads. So manipulate your foot strike around your fatigue.
Hand in the air for Lazar Dukic in lane number 12.
Well, Chase, 14:20 is our split time from Zach Thomas last week in Brisbane, Australia. And still the fastest split time across all semi-finals for the run portion.
Wow, that's impressive.
Lazar Dukic it off at 13:52.
Whoa.
Nearly 30 seconds faster than the fastest split time we've seen anywhere around the world to this date.
So as a coach, what I look at is these times that they're doing these 2,000 meters. I mean, so let's just say it takes you 10 minutes to do this 2K. For me, it's a good ballpark. Now what you actually are able to do in terms of your average speed in a 20-minute time domain. And so for me, just a simple math equation, if I wanted to say 2,000 meters in 10 minutes, that would give you roughly a 5K in a total of 25 minutes. Dukic, what he just demonstrated is he's got an ability to run a 5K under 18 minutes right now.
Lazar Dukic finally joined by the man he's trying to dethrone. BKG is off in lane 11. Lazar Dukic, Björgvin Karl Guðmundsson, and Moritz Feibig are 1, 2, and 3. But Lazar Dukic nearly has a full-length lead on the next closest athlete.
I mean, that's how to establish your dominance.
Hey, Jeremy, I remember we were talking about athletes getting off at the 16-minute mark, not getting on to the SkiErg.
On. So finish time for, actually Jason Hopper's got the fastest split time at 19 minutes 50. So Zach Thomas took him exactly 2 minutes to get that last sled pull complete.
Look at Dukic about halfway across the floor in his last pull. As we are just past the 16-minute mark. Still a full-length lead on the next closest athlete. And BKG is now getting caught. Looks like by Moritz Feibig and Enrico Zanoni. As Aniola Kai moves over to fix his sled. So we were curious that, sometimes this tarp sled will get wrapped underneath the plates, and that causes a lot more friction. So we were asking Con Porter earlier, would you run out and fix the plates? And we saw Aniola Kai do that very exact thing.
Same thing when that sled slides over the tape or the paint. There's a lot more friction in those areas, and so the athletes are really being careful to stay away from those spots.
So it looks like BKG still holding on to that second place position. Moritz Feibig just one pull behind him. But all this time, Lazar Dukic has been able to extend his lead on the field.
Now, Chris, what sort of time frame are you looking at these guys to be finishing this 1K ski in at this particular point after getting through 17 minutes of work already?
So in every one of these events, the athletes need to ballpark their speed. Like, how do you know what pace to come up with? And what you do is on this ski, what would be the speed that you could hold for roughly 20 minutes? Like a 5K ski. And for Dukic, that's somewhere in that 147 to 150 per 500 meter pace. So that would be a good target for him. I'd recommend the same thing on the AirRunner. What would be your fastest average speed that you could hang on to for a 20-minute time domain? And that's what these athletes are initially targeting. So that's the quick way to do it. You add up the total volume of a workout, and now what you do is you break it down into individual movements if you did those as standalones based upon that total amount of time.
Now, would you increase the speed the closer you got to the end of the ski, and not thinking about the sled pull that's coming up? But are you trying to maybe
That's a great
set
question.
a standard, make a statement?
Yeah, so they're not thinking of that sled until they get really, really close. Like, for example, the last 10 seconds, then they're thinking of their transition. What am I gonna do first? And for these athletes, they're grabbing the rope, but where am I gonna grab the rope? And so that will occur with their last 10 seconds. Right now, they're just staying in that rhythm. That's all they're interested in. Like for a guy like Dukic, what he's doing is he's pulling 36 strokes a minute and he's breathing once every 2 strokes. That rhythm is key for him.
Your top 3 athletes, Lazar Dukic, Henrik Haapalainen has actually moved into second place. He's over in lane number 3, and BKG, Björgvin Karl Guðmundsson. BKG being one of a handful of athletes on trying to make their 10th bid to the CrossFit Games. We've already seen Noah Olsen do it. Katrin Davidsdottir did it last weekend. And BKG is that final athlete. And not just 10, but 10 straight.
Yeah.
Very, very select group of individuals to be able to do that.
Yeah, you think about that 10 years, the durability it takes at this level too. I mean, this sport has evolved a tremendous amount in the last 10 years, and to be at his level where he is 10 years in, it really says a lot about what he's done as an athlete.
Let's go down to the floor with more info on Victor Hoffer.
Yeah, Chase, just kind of observing the floor here as most of the guys were on the ski, and I noticed Victor kind of well behind the pack with the sled. And not just that, but he was, having some grip issues and kind of looking around left and right. If you're not sure of who Victor Hoffer is, he's a young man from France, 19 years old, and he's looking to make the CrossFit Games. He's probably going to take a pretty big hit here, but he's got some really good workouts coming up, so I think a good test for him is going to be, despite a slow start, will he be able to rally?
Thank you, Brian. And someone who's not having a slow start at all is Lazar Dukic in lane number 12. He's already off the SkiErg, getting one pull down. We are at the 20-minute mark, 20:40. Jeremy, it's going to be close again.
It is going to be tight.
Just over a minute to try to hit the fastest time we've seen in the world. Still held on by Zach Thomas, 21:51.06, and Lazar Dukic has just under 50 seconds to get there. Next best time, the one that matters here in Berlin, 22:05.34, set by Jelle Holste. And Lazar, halfway through his final sled pull, 92 feet is the distance, 225 pounds is the weight. And Lazar, 20 seconds away from the fastest time we've seen, 30 seconds away from the fastest time we've had here in Berlin. And we may see, like we did on the women's side, a Heat 2 time stand against the third and final heat. Lazar Dukic halfway across the floor. He's got to get it into the red stop mat. No one's going to be catching him in this heat, but the time of Jelle Holste has passed. So Jelle Holste will take the event, but can Lazar Dukic take the heat? Zach Thomas's time will stand as the fastest time around the world, but Lazar Dukic, just a couple pulls left. Much better event one than he has had all off season, and Lazar Dukic will take the heat here in test number 1. Björgvin Karl Guðmundsson, third place. Henrik Haapalainen snuck in ahead of him. Both athletes underneath the 23-minute mark. Good start for Haapalainen. You can hear the roar of the crowd for Morris Wiebig, hometown athlete here in Germany.
Chase, we've seen in the other semi-finals that a poor start to competition doesn't necessarily mean a poor finish at the end of the semi-final, but starts like that for Lazar and also BKG, really important, especially BKG going back for 10 years.
Oldest Ubenix is done. Harry Lightfoot, he's also completed. Jonne Koski, at about half the field left. Athletes finishing up their final sled pulls. Luka Dukic, maybe the next across the finish line. And Luka Dukic will be in right around that 24:41. Enrico Zanoni on his final sled pull. Games rookie last year. Can he repeat this year? Just over 25 minutes, 25:10 for Zanoni. And Yolo Kai. One more pull to go for him. He'll finish in 25:24. Antoine Dumaine. He's in underneath the 25:40 mark. We're talking about BKG trying to get 10 in a row. The only three that have had 10 consecutive trips to the games. Ben Smith, Noah Olson, Cole Sager. Other athletes have gotten 10, but not 10 straight. And BKG would be one of 4 if he can do it here this weekend. Cole Sager getting his 10th out of the North America West semifinal last weekend. Noah did it at the North America East. "30-minute time cap." We're approaching the 27-minute mark.
Well, look at the community here, huh? A lot of people today.
And it's only Friday. We're just getting started.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's remarkable, the number. I like all the athletes, too. How about Sarah cheering on everybody at the end?
Good to see Sarah back in competition. Amy Thorstad back in individual competition.
Right.
Yorgos Karevis.
Look at this.
Trying to finish up his final sled pull. And as Karevis is done, it's just Victor Hoffer left out on the floor. Final athlete to try to get his sled across the finish line. Ship timer's on the sled. It's got to get past and into that red stop mat. Hoffer in the white and black. Crowd on their feet. Louder than they've ever been. And that'll close things out for individual men here for test number 1.
What a great event.